The fourth part of this chapter is the Reformation in England. The Reformation in England took quite a different route than it did in continental Europe, and this might be because the number of dissidents was really small, and that really limited their significance. Another reason is that in England they didn't face the same papal abuses that they did in Germany. King Henry VIII of England was married to Catherine for 18 years. They had several children, but all of them died in infancy except one, and her name was Mary. King Henry used the fact that Catherine was past childbearing age and his desire to have a son to be the rightful heir of the throne to propose a change of wives. He listed these as his political reasons. However, he also had personal interest in his lady-in-waiting. King Henry appealed to Rome to annul his marriage to Catherine. He stated that their marriage was invalid from the beginning, since Catherine was originally married to his older brother who died in adolescence. He also used their childlessness as a reason. Pope Clement was put in a very awkward and kind of hard situation because many popes before him had annulled marriages on lesser terms than what King Henry was providing. However, Catherine was the aunt to King Charles, and King Charles's army actually had a hold over Pope Clement. King Henry became very mad about these delays and took action himself. In 1531, he compelled an assembly of English clergy to declare him protector and only supreme head of the Church of England. In 1532, he encouraged Parliament to produce an inflammatory list of grievances against the English clergy and used this threat to force them to concede his right. In 1533, Henry married the already pregnant Anne Boleyn, and the new Archbishop of Canterbury, Thomas Cranmer, later annulled the marriage, acting on his own authority. And in 1533, Princess Elizabeth was born, and this is kind of humorous because she was also female and not the male son that they were hoping for, and Parliament made changes. Parliament redirected all papal revenues from England directly into the king's hands. They prohibited appeals to papal court, and they named the king supreme head of the Church of England. Mary, Edward's half-sister, eventually took over the throne, and when she did, she made quite a few changes that reversed things that Edward had done. Some of these include returning to Latin Mass, requiring that all married priests give up their wives, and a demand of returning to papal allegiance. While we would think that this would cause a big upheaval and make many people upset, it actually had little resistance, and we can kind of attribute this to the fact that people were looking for it to bring some stability during this conflictive time. After Mary started making these changes, a bunch of Protestant propaganda came out calling her Bloody Mary, and it was quite unsettling to not only those Protestants, but also people who were pleased to see this return to traditional faith. Ultimately, Mary faced a few problems in being able to continue her plan, and some of this was her marriage to Philip. The English never really trusted him, and he actually pulled them into an unpopular war with France, and they lost, so that lost her a lot of votes. And also, a lot of the local head families had gained a lot of wealth when Edward took land and stuff from the monasteries and distributed out to them. So they were very unhappy with what she was doing, returning to the monasteries, because they didn't want to lose all of their land again. But ultimately, what came to kind of bite Mary in the butt was she didn't have a son to take over the throne. So her sister, half sister Elizabeth, was able to come in and take over. Queen Elizabeth was predisposed to Protestantism, but she was really trying to avoid sectarian strife. So as a result, we get the Elizabethan settlement, and this settlement removed all of Mary's legislative Catholic acts, and it also prevented foreign powers from coming in and demanding a certain religion in her territory. So we started out Protestantism, and then we saw that shift to Catholic with Mary, and now we're kind of swinging back to Protestantism in England. The Elizabethan settlement was actually very successful. People began to pride its nationalism of England off of that Protestantism, and many people believed that God himself had actually destined England for greatness. And after winning an improbable war, this only made them hold that belief with even fuller conviction. And there became an increasing amount of severe laws against Catholicism, and while it did not die out completely, many Catholics began being persecuted.